whatever woman's doing and the whole thing, that in a way, the job of the curator, right? If that's what we are in a certain way, like we're sort of in a world of like these relatively trusted people, our job is more important, or not, I don't want to say more important, it's highly important relative to people being able to make some sense out of the madness. Yeah,
that's a new pressure that I'm not an expert, but I definitely think I also don't just get to say, I'm a nobody and don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you say that. That's the only time I give you shit, right?
When you do that. And you should give me shit because it's not really. Because I'm abdicating my responsibility and also, I'm not an expert. I only have my confusion to offer. That doesn't mean I don't have any knowledge, and it doesn't mean I don't have any insight, and it doesn't mean I just get to be like.
But also all the self-professed experts often get everything wrong all the time. You know, so I like people who do, and you're going to make some mistakes along the way. I mean, in a weird way, this is like Trump's greatest gift. It's not that he's certainly no expert in politics. No. I guess he could be an expert maybe in building buildings, physical structures or something like that. But he's not an expert in politics, but he has a gut feel for something that seemingly is sort of right in a certain way or whatever, wherever you want to put that.
In many ways, I get him.
No, that's how I was going to relate it to you.
He's intuitive. I understand the way he kind of shoots off the hip, and it's like, he's very intuitive, for sure. And people always say, you're like an intuitive political pundit, or like an intuitive pundit, where I don't know anything, but I do have a good general sense of, I don't know, like the way the current or the zeitgeist or whatever.
But that is a real thing. That is a real thing, right? Like I always tweet this thing about how is it possible that Trump, this orange-haired, giant, bloviating, seeming buffoon, is more of a real person than the Democratic candidates. And then you see Elizabeth Warren dancing up there.
Yeah, people are so desperate for authenticity that they'll pick an authentic asshole over disingenuous, lifetime politicians who have been paid by the government forever.
Yeah.
And so there's just a distrust of all our institutions. So I think anyone who's being authentic is somebody that people are like, well, I can trust that person. Now, that might not also be true as well. And I was saying to the other day to my I had someone call and they're like, how can you be both sides? And this is a family member, and she was distraught and crying and like, can't you see the kids in cages and, the like repetitive things that I often hear online. And
you mean the system that Obama set up that nobody said anything about at the time? Yeah, that system, yeah.
And this is what I said. I said the hardest thing about this time is evaluating what was true with every administration that is now being demonized because it's Trump, and what is something that he's doing completely differently that we need to be aware of and push back against. And this is where I will say principled conservatives have been pretty good. And there are some who are very consistent, some of the never Trumpers or whatever, who are lifetime conservatives. They might not always be right, but if, you kind of have to find those people where you're like, okay, this is a left-wing thing. Who are the people who push back against the left wing, and what's their take on it? And what's the never Trumpers' take on this? Is this a thing that's always been happening, or is this a thing that is something that we should be concerned about?
What's funny, though? I find the never Trumpers, even that phrase, I would never want to be defined by what I never am or what I'm against. But it's such a horrible way to define yourself. And it also shows why so many of them have seemingly gone crazy.
Than the intellectual dark web.
That wasn't the greatest. That wasn't the greatest thing ever. Well, IDW has a nice ring to it.
Okay.
But the idea that you'd say I'm never Trump, well, that's a real dangerous thing, because if he does 6 out of 10 good things and you're I'm never Trump, well, now you're wrong 6 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Now you're failing. So it's just one of those things.
I know, and I don't know that a lot of people who get thrown in that camp even consider themselves never Trumpers.
Yeah.
It's kind of everybody just wants to be labeled. I always just get called Rubin 2.0.
Yeah.
That's like, everyone's like, remember Rubin 2 years ago? She's going to be saying the same thing in 2 years. I'm like, well, I hope
you mean you're going to be the leader of the alt-right in 2 years?
I hope I have a hot tub.
That would be pretty good.
Yeah.
That would be pretty good. All right, Bridget, we are going to send people to Phetasy.com. It is the first local that exists beyond the Rubin Report local.
Yeah,
and I'm super psyched that you're doing it. And you're going to be big, sister.
It's going to be fun.
I have proclaimed it right
We
here.
have a good community. You know, there's a lot of people in recovery. There's like a lot of people who aren't. It's just mostly very loving people who are confused. And it's really interesting. There's so many, you know, it's just so interesting, the different kinds of people that I do feel like if I am in a gated community in a silo, at least there's still dialogue occurring. It's not just all one thing or all the other thing. There's still a lot of talk in my silo.
Wait, and more important than anything else, I hope that you're sharing pictures of Hope, your dog, in there. Because mine's very Emma heavy, and we both are. So Emma, most of my audience knows, at 15 and a half and a year into cancer, we're sort of entering that last phase with her. But I've posted some questions about geriatric dogs and palliative care, and I get incredible responses from people about all that kind of stuff. And Hope was going through some stuff with her eye, but she's okay, right?
Yeah, she's okay.
Yeah, so you just find strange ways to build community.
Yeah, and I think that I do believe I love people. You know, I think that most people, left, right, center, wherever they are doing, I think they believe what they're saying. You know, I don't know that it
doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean their logic is flawed, but or it isn't flawed. I just think I try to give people the benefit of the doubt because I know that it's hard being human.
Give Bridget the benefit of the doubt at Phetasy.com. If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about comedy instead of the nonstop yelling you get everywhere else, check out our comedy playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.